Well, there's a sentiment on this penultimate Saturday of the league phase of the IPL as we arrive at match 61 of two kinds. One with fans of teams that are already looking like this season's gone. Where do we improve? Where do things change? More like the Rajasthan Royals, potentially the Kolkata Knight Riders. The other, the CSKs and the Gujarat Titans, now the Mumbai Indians or the RCBs after what happened at Jaipur, where there's a lot to look forward to. So even if there is a playoff spot that's all but theirs, or a top two spot that looks good, they'd like to have more and more boxes ticked. And we build up to CSK against KKR in just under 20 minutes from now at the Chepauk, the last home game for Chennai, only in the league phase. You're pretty sure you're going to see them in at least one of those playoffs coming up next week. Right, this is Visit Saudi presents ESPN Cricinfo T20 Timeout. The sentiment with Dasgupta and Ian Bishop will always be an optimistic, positive, happy one, especially when they see me on a Saturday evening. Good evening,
Absolutely. Good evening, Raunak.
Yes, Bish, were you happy to have the fine company of Yash ask you good, straightforward questions, not the nonsense that I tend to throw at you? Allow me to offer a little variety now, just to change it up a little.
That's a rhetorical question. All right.
All right. Chennai are at the Chepauk. They're batting first. They are unchanged. It's the kind of thing we expect from the Super Kings, don't we? And there was chat after the last game when we heard from Michael Hussey that Ben Stokes is fit and ready for selection, and he doesn't make it. It's one of those things, right, that make the Super Kings what they are. Player of Stokes' pedigree, bought for big money, huge money at the auction. Doesn't matter. They've got a plan that's working, and they are sticking to it. So let's have a chat on those forms. This is already a team, Deep, I'm guessing, is looking at the playoffs. Yeah. And now it's fair to say, even with Stokes fit and available, that he doesn't fit into their first 11. This is what we're expecting from the Super Kings?
Absolutely. I mean, when was the last time we saw Chennai make those decisions? I mean, they've been very straightforward from year one.
Yeah.
If they've figured out their playing 11, they stick with it. They might make a tactical change here and there, but that's about it. Very rarely you see them using more than 14, 15 players a season. And this is no different.
Yeah, now I can only imagine if you had a high-profile player with big money, take, say, Punjab with your Liam Livingstons, or even KKR with an Andre Russell, you'd say, oh, whenever they
Harry Brook
have
for
the chance. Harry Brook, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
But whenever I get the chance, if he's fit, I'm going to play him. But it's not seeming to be the CSK way. Is that because they have every base covered, Bish? And Stokes are almost struggling to find a place for him in this team?
Absolutely. Playing good cricket. Dhoni says he's pleased with the way the guys have performed, and I would tend to agree with him given all the injuries that they had coming into the season. A good story in the IPL, so no need to disturb that chemistry. Things are working well.
All right. I guess if you had to make a case, it has to be Moeen Ali. Moeen Ali, the batter, hasn't come to the party, and you think Ben Stokes is in this team more for his batting than his bowling.
Yeah, but obviously, especially this game being in Chepauk, where obviously it's not going to be that high scoring, and you need Moeen the bowler also, and quite a few left-handers in that batting order as well against KKR, so you need him.
Yep, yeah, and he's been very good, Moeen Ali the bowler, and they're going to be those left-handers as Deep Dasgupta says. So it's an unchanged team. We'll expect Matisha Patirana to show up in the second half, as we have almost come to expect now from CSK, just the three overseas name. And Patirana's part of that great story, Vish, because I guess one of the reasons Stokes might have been looked at is maybe he'll bowl 1 or 2 overs at the death. And we looked at pre-season, we said, who's going to bowl at the death for CSK? Patirana, Deshpande, now the return of Deepak Chahar. It's the kind of story that I'm sure you've enjoyed. And with what great success it's worked, that this is a team that's commanded its way to the playoffs now with that bowling lineup.
In some ways, I'm not saying, finding it hard to believe is not the right phrase. I'm amazed at how these troops have come together, how the captain and the backroom staff have nurtured Deshpande, the absence of Deepak sometimes, and Patirana, who they've been grooming since last season. I'm educated. I feel educated in seeing how this is possible and getting these young guys to do this. And to be up this way in the table, because if he'd asked me before the season with all these injuries, I wasn't looking second at this stage of the tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. And, with due respect, that you look at some of the bowling lineups and you think, we didn't fancy CSK, and this is where they are. Same can be said about KKR's seam bowling lineup. That's not a pace attack that has come to the party, but you don't need the big names necessarily to have potency in the IPL. MS Dhoni has shown if you stick to certain plans and players, it works. Look at KKR's team, they bring in another pacer. Webb Aurора's been in and out of this team, He replaces Anukul Roy, who was played in that last game against Rajasthan, where Shasvi Jaiswal lit up the Eden Gardens. They made a tactical change, I guess. He says that the surface is sticky and he's bringing back a seamer, but there are still questions about the threat of that pace bowling lineup, aren't there?
Yeah, and I guess the reason getting Weber back into the attack would be whether Shardul Thakur was fit to bowl or not, whether Andre Russell's fit to bowl or not. They did bowl over, I guess, a few overs between them in the last game, and they weren't that great, especially Shardul Thakur. So maybe he feels that necessity of getting in another seamer. Maybe, like I said, Shardul might not bowl this game, and you have enough spinners in there. I mean, Nitish Rana, if you include him and his off spin as well, which again, looking at that batting order of CSK, there are quite a few left-handers there as well.
Yeah, let's look at the points table. It'll tell you where both these teams are. They have different motivations going into this game. KKR, even if they are to cause what will certainly be an upset at the Chepauk, the best they can get to is 14 points. Already said many times on this show, it looks unlikely 14 will be enough. Lucknow have 2 in hand, Mumbai have 2 in hand. They do play each other though, Lucknow and Mumbai. And you also have Chennai and Gujarat sitting pretty at 15 and 16 respectively. But just to perhaps look at these two games from a Kolkata point of view, from the players' point of view, Bish, assuming some of them would be realistic about their chances of the playoffs and may feel like, all right, perhaps we've checked out this season. How important are these couple of games to leave a bit of a lasting impression? We know teams tend to see how a season ends rather than how a season's gone. Players like Russell, players like Narayan, big profile players, there will be a conversation had at the end of this season. How would these two games factor into how they'd be thinking right now?
Different players are motivated by different things, right? Some guys who are established will only be motivated by the chance of success. But then there are other guys who will be playing for their contracts, who will be playing for a place in the team, who will be playing for their legacy, different motivational forces. I would think most of the guys in that KKR lineup will be saying to themselves, I need to end this season well because it hasn't really gone the way that I'd hoped. You have your little exceptions like Rinku, but he's young. He wants to continue scoring runs, for example, right? Chakravarti's done well, but every game that he gets and every wicket that he gets towards the end of this season is a chance for him to think about higher elevation. So I would think there's still a lot riding here. And this morning I woke up to the news of a coach from a basketball team in the States who was coach of the year 2 times in the last 4, took his team to the final, but got bumped out in the semi-final of a conference game. And he's gone. Owner said, coach of the year 2 years ago? No, that's not good enough. This team needs to win. There are casualties when things don't always spill over. And I'm not wishing it on anyone, but that's just the motivation that this KKR team, each player has to say, I can't sit on my laurels here. I need to finish the season strong. Yeah,
I mean, IPL franchises have 2 forms of casualties, don't they? There's the coaching staff, there are the players. And KKR are an interesting story because it looked like it was going to be, a challenge or an interesting way to go about it, that you retained Russell and Narayan and banked on their fitness and form, and you retained Varun and Venkatesh Iyer. Now, you could say Varun's had his best season or one of the better seasons. Venkaya has been good, Rinku, Nitish Rana. So I guess a lot of the spotlight, you sense, as we approach the end of the season, will fall on their overseas players. Lockie Ferguson not getting a game, top order. They've only been helped or rescued to a degree by Jason Roy's unexpected arrival in the IPL. But Russell, Narayan, do you sense the overseas player there's going to be a serious review after this year?
Definitely yes. And obviously there are certain other, India players like Shardul Thakur was traded for a big sum of money. There'll be a review about a few players for sure. There's no 2 ways about it. The big auction is only, I think, a couple of years from now. They've got to look into it. And I hope, going to the coaching staff bit, I hope they continue with this coaching staff. I hope they continue with Chandrakant Pandit because, to be honest, he came in after they had picked the squad. So, technically speaking, this is not his squad. I don't think he has too much input in terms of the players that are there in that squad. There are good players. That's not the point. But he would like to kind of mold this team in a different way, given a little more time. So I hope obviously the season hasn't been that great for them. It's been very inconsistent to a great extent. But I hope they're given a bit of time. And to some of the senior players as well, while I do understand it'll be the home stretch as far as some of those careers are concerned. But I still think they've got a year or 2 years left in them. So I don't think they need to really think too much or be overcritical about it. Yes, you need to assess it, but I think be a little more objective about it and not, we've seen a lot of these franchises react very differently. At times overreact to these situations. But I think this still is a good side. They need a little more backup in terms of bench strength and everything else. And if given an opportunity and time to Chandrakant Pandey, I think he can do the job.
Okay. Now, with regards to Russell and Narayan specifically, Yusuf Pathan on our own show, in the Hindi show, has said that perhaps they need to look at different options there, or perhaps if those players are to move to different franchises, that may be, a better new start for them. I know Darren Ganga said something similar at the Cricinfo conference recently, where he said change of franchise may work for Sunil Narayan. Where do you stand on that? Have they perhaps had everything that they could offer to this franchise with great success, including 2 IPL titles, which now seem a long time away, and maybe there's still something left in it, but perhaps a change of environment might suit both the players and the franchise?
Those are things you can gauge from within a dressing room. And they're not bad things. We've seen it in soccer. We've seen it in other sports that...
We've even seen it in the IPL.
Yeah, guys get stale and then they go somewhere else and then they feel a need to prove to that franchise that they still... I think there's still something left in those guys. Let me hold up my hand and say I still think Narayan has something to offer. I still think Andrew Russell has something to offer. I'm hoping that we see it in these last 2 games of the season, to be quite honest. But whatever they choose to do at the end of the season, those guys still have cricket in them. It's just a matter of how you get it out, where you get it out of them. And those things are known within the walls of the dressing room, but there's still life in there.
But the other important thing is, if you do let go of these players, if the franchises do, you don't have that kind of replacement. I mean, in a smaller auction, how are you going to replace someone like an Andre Russell? How do you think you'll replace a Sunil Narayan? So while I do understand that Sunil Narayan might get a second wind if he goes to a different thing, but that boils down to the franchise. And I don't think till there's a big auction, the next big auction, they can afford to let go of match winners. They still are match winners. It's fair, they haven't had great seasons, both of them, but they still are there.
I think in other sports as well, and again, just reading other sports just recently, just more than one successful CEO of a franchise says there's a life cycle for a playing group. Every playing group, and he's a championship winner, has a life cycle, and you have to know when to change up that that cycle of that nucleus, in spite of the emotion that might be involved with guys who've been around for a while. And this is not just about Russell and Ryan. This is about more guys in the group, and that's the tough thing about managing an ownership, knowing when the cycle needs to be changed.
Either scenario entertained. I mean, we might see a number of franchises let go of big money signings in the smaller auctions. You could possibly see Harry Brook go into that. Maybe Ben Stokes will go into it or whatever to try and change the auction dynamic. So you have money to play with. But Andre Russell, who was retained as the premier player, 12 crore, if it's a realistic, if you have to be realistic about Russell and where his age and body is, that you will not get Russell the bowler to bowl every game. That perhaps means that Russell the batter has to be worth that much in your team, and perhaps that hasn't quite happened yet. Because one game recently against Punjab, but if he isn't going to fire in even these 2 remaining games, would you review it from a point of Russell the batter is not sort of serving justice to what we need out of him?
It's big business. The big business. I look at these IPL franchises as serious entities, high value franchises, and you have to be prepared to make decisions that are sometimes not popular. And this is going to be on those players, Russell, Narayan, Gurbaz to a lesser extent because he's still young. This is going to be on them to say, I need to dig deeper into my bag and pull out some performances here because I can't ride on my reputation for all this length of time.
In the sense, if he gets 2 big innings now, that's a different story altogether.
That conversation I think could be parked aside.
Like if he gets say 60 or 30 today and maybe another big one to close the season off, suddenly looking like,
the point I'd make is that I know these guys. They are not resting on their laurels. They are trying. They don't want this team to be in this situation. That has to be clear. Russell wants to score. He wants the ball. Narayan wants wickets. It just hasn't happened to the level they want.
All right. Well, a result today, and we have a different conversation, unlikely as it seems, because you would back CSK with the kind of form they've shown, especially at home. And the IPL is a tough tournament. Can't stress on that enough. They also lost Shreyas Iyer, their captain, their best batter. It's a hard commodity to replace. But there will be questions asked of KKR. And who knows about the ups and downs of the IPL and how tough it is, more than the Rajasthan Royals. One step away from being champions last year. And this afternoon, looks like their tournament has effectively come to an end. Look at that points table one more time. The fact that they've gone down in catastrophic fashion to RCB at Jaipur, their last home game of this season, will tell you that not only are they only in a position to reach to 14, but they might very well end up as the team with not the healthiest net run rate, if it indeed is 14 points that squeezes you into the final four. It'll have to pretty much be in that final slot. And perhaps a chat on where they'd be, how they'd be feeling now. We've had a little time, and I'd like to talk about Sanju Samson, because we've seen a lot of players take the next step this year. And many times Samson has this huge fan following, and rightly so, he feels like he's not had a fair run with the Indian team. But from what we've seen of this IPL, has Sanju Samson, the batter, helped his cause?
No, definitely not. I think he's had a below par season. And also there was a period during this tournament where I thought Sanju, the captain, did not help Sanju, the batter's cause. He came down the order, started batting at 4 for a few games. He moved his batting place up and down a bit. That does not help. I think at times credit to him, he kind of put the team before himself. That is great to him, but I don't think that has helped his cause individually as a batter. But yeah, it's a below par season for sure. Yeah,
as I run through his scores, and I know that people say, all right, don't go by today's innings, but it's been thematic of Sanju Samson, right? Yeah. Hit and miss, or start really well and not keep that going. So he got 55, 42, 0, 0, 60, 2, 22, 17, 14, 10, 30, 66, 48 now. And today, of course, he had a low score. Yeah. But in the time that they had this sort of low run of scores too, we've had a significant contribution from Samson just once. That's the 66 that he got. I guess what you want from this Samson and this team is perhaps to rise up.
Exactly. So, you want him to do what Yashasvi's done right through the season. Not just, give those quick starts, but then carry on. And if you see a lot of those 30s and all would have been in 20 balls, 22 balls. So they've been quick fire, those 25, 30, but then you would expect him to kind of carry on, get those big totals.
He's a very likable character, Fish, and he's a very likable captain. Even looking at today's game, can't help but think that he's helped Wayne Parnell in getting his wicket, and that almost seems the frustration with Samson, that either he plays the wrong shot at the wrong time, or he doesn't give himself the best chance to succeed. In a game like this, if they win today, it's a completely different conversation. Now that they've lost, you tend to ask questions, and where do you stand on Sanju Samson at the end of this game?
I would want one more from him. Obviously, I think he's that level of talent. I think a lot of us acknowledge that he's a special talent. And so, but 360 at 33, strike rate of 150, it's not a fail season.
100%.
It's not a fail season.
Yes.
There are other bigger issues within that team than Sanju, but could Sanju do better? Yes. You asked the question how they might be feeling in there. I am the wrong person to ask, because if we're playing marbles in the backyard and I lose, I'm throwing a fit. I hate losing. You ask me to predict a score and I get it wrong, I hate it. So I have to learn to deal with things better than that. So I don't think they'll be feeling that great either.
Okay, there's going to be a review.
you
On that note, you know what I'm going to do next? I'm going to ask Ian Bishop to predict the score. Let's move back to Chennai, Kolkata. Right, Bish.
167.
Excellent.
Chennai batting. I'd say 172.
172, okay. I don't even need to bother, you know.
200.
200, yeah. We're going to get 200. Come on, give us a 200. Give us an MS special in the last league game at the Chepauk. Thank you very much, Deep Dasgupta and Bishop. Plenty more from these fine gentlemen as the evening goes on. On Visit Saturday presents ESPN Cricinfo T20 Time. Check out the mobile app. Have you covered? There'll be plenty of reaction. Post-match, Kumar Sangakkara has attended the post-match presser, so his thoughts will be written up, and you can read those on the ESPN Cricinfo mobile app. We'll see you at the end of the Chennai innings.